So, Brother Paul, tell me how where your story begins. How did you make this journey to Islam?
So it started probably a couple of years ago now, and essentially through learning about Islam through my wife, in fact.
So you met her before?
Yes,
you knew about
yes,
Islam?
yes. So my wife runs businesses of which I used to help support, and we knew each other through work. And it was through a part curiosity, I guess, asking about the religion, about what it entailed, because there's lots of misconception in and around what Islam is and what it represents. And what became apparent very quickly was that there was a lot about giving and about support and charity, and examples that my wife to now was giving me were quite incredible. You know, some of the work that she's done in terms of support, particularly during Ramadan, is incredible, and you couldn't help but be drawn towards that. And certainly, personally, I have a predisposition to look at how do you work with local communities, how do you do things to help better other people, and to see something that she was doing that without any form of response or any, I'm trying to think of the word now, but any form of
Without expecting rewards?
Well, yes, exactly. Rewards, or indeed any form of recognition from anybody. It was just done. And there was something incredibly, I guess, unusual about that. And
So this was your first encounter with Islam when you met your wife? Oh, before you met her, of course, before you were married.
of course, yeah. Yes, but certainly I had very little understanding about it. I guess I had a degree of curiosity about it, because I didn't know many people that were, you know, certainly from my background, that were from Islamic. So I had very little understanding of the religion and what it entailed and what was involved. And as I become to understand what that involved and what she did to help other people, and her incredible dedication towards doing good was quite magnetic. And it was from that that I asked more and more about it and questioned, and through friends, in fact, Brother Farouk, a gentleman that took me to the mosque in Mayfair, again spent a good part of a day with me, talking me through the principles of Islam. I haven't retained it all in all its detail, but certainly it was incredibly interesting, and certainly from my past, I wasn't particularly religious, and certainly had lost.
What was your background? I mean,
My background? So my parents are Irish, and so they were brought up as Catholics, but not really practicing. And so I think over the years I lost any real connection with religion. Part of that was through seeing things that are quite tough in life, seeing family members suffer with issues in and around cancer, and it makes you question religion. So I'd lost, I guess, a degree of direction with that over the years, and with that, I suppose a bit of purpose about why we were doing what we were doing. I guess that what we do in life, and then as I began to understand more about Islam and about that it's very much about support, giving, and that it's incredibly misinterpreted and misunderstood.
How long did the process take from the moment you started asking questions about Islam until you decided to embrace it? Did it take you long?
I would say 6 months to maybe a bit longer, as I started to begin to try and understand what Islam, what it offered, I suppose, I guess, to look at it somewhat selfishly, but yes, I'd say around 6 months of talking and asking questions, meeting up with other people, and from there being able to make a fair and reasonable judgment in my own mind about this was what I wanted to do, embrace moving forward.
Now, was it an easy transition?
The the actual transition of going through wasn't difficult. It wasn't certainly not. No, I don't think. Again, there was a lot of support in and around what I was doing. So.
From the Muslim community?
For the Muslim community, yeah, particularly in around friends, close friends of ours.
How about your own family?
Yeah, my family incredibly supportive of what
Really?
I've done. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's been no, I've not been. They're very open-minded, and I think
That's very helpful.
Oh, it is. Yeah, I think part of it is they trust, rightly or wrongly, my judgment, I guess, and supported everything that all the steps that I've taken in terms of conversion through to marriage, and have been incredibly supportive of it. So yeah, there's been no barriers there, and our friends within the Muslim community have been incredibly. As I mentioned off air, that I spent time in the mosque across the road, and people are and I guess the obvious unusual thing about me is that I'm white, and apart from children who when I walk in will look up and have a giggle because it's a bit unusual. Everyone is incredibly welcoming, and it's a really, I better best put it, but it's a very warm and loving environment to be with them.
Now you are a lawyer and you work with the business people in the city. Has it in any way affected your work, or did it matter?
No, I don't think so. I think it makes you, in my current venture, or if you will, I'm now looking at how I do more with local community. So this work I'm doing in terms of connection with community and using dormant locations within our properties to connect with local communities and do good is partly driven by the way in which I now think, which is not, and that is not in any way fiscal. That's nothing to do with money. That there is an element of my business that is money focused because I have to pay people and generate wages. But this part is very much a lot of work for absolutely no financial return. It's just it gives you a sense of good, that you're doing good, particularly when you see the work that's involved in it. So that, if anything, I would say my understanding now of the good and the give, particularly the giving and the supporting of others as a fundamental element of Islam is something that I take and I apply there. I don't apply it there with the view that this is an Islamic approach to occupying the space, but it's absolutely in and around.
So this work with the community, you started it after the conversion, or you,
Yes.
you had already been?
No, I know, absolutely after the conversion. So I converted. Oh my God, now we're going back a bit now, but in fact it was about a year or so ago, maybe even longer. I can't recall the exact date, but no, I converted, and then within a few months of that, started to decide that there was more that I could do in my job that went beyond simply the commercial elements of my role, and that's when I started to develop the understanding of how I could work more with the community and do this and undertake this project, which is expanding into looking at things like training and developing displaced teenagers and other things, and none of these things in themselves make money, but as we know, if we do good, it comes back in return. So, but I feel a real sense of well-being, and it's just incredibly positive to see the stuff that we do now. But it's very much driven by the ethics and the process of thinking around Islam.
Now, in your line of work, have you met other people who made similar journey to Islam?
No, not really. No, if I'm honest. I mean, there's I work because I work with a lot of entrepreneurial individuals. A lot of those are Indian or indeed Pakistani. I interestingly, I work with other Muslims within the community and help support and
from
develop
within the Muslim community itself.
Absolutely, yeah. But no, I mean, I don't know of anyone else who's gone through it, which I suppose you perceive it to be a bit more daunting. Because it's not typical, I guess, of a 40-odd-year-old man, Irish heritage to convert. But for me, it felt like I felt it was the right thing to do, and I haven't looked back.
Now, about perception of Islam, do you encounter people within the society at large who give you an impression that they have certain misunderstanding of Islam, and that leads to a discussion, or you try to avoid any such discussions in public spaces?
No, I tend to sort of deal with them head on, if I'm honest. I do come across it, and it's predominantly driven by a great deal of ignorance. So I don't see it as a direct attack. I think it's just they don't understand and they have a very poor perception of predominantly piecemeal information by media, I suspect. So I do my best to. I guess explain from a perspective or a background that I come from about that it's not as you would perceive. This isn't all in and around the poor perception in and around sort of the violence that goes in and around it. If you consider my background is Irish, the IRA were pretty prolific in the 80s, and it's not unusual to be part of a group that were tarred with a particularly unfair brush. But I do my best to help them understand that things aren't as they would appear, and all I ever see, and I give them examples of the good that I see that's done within the community and the support that's given, and the period during fasting, and about the good that's done during that period is incredible, and give some examples of that. And many people don't know or understand it. I'm not even sure everyone always believes it, but nevertheless, I keep sort of pushing the message. But I think it's important that you address people's misconceptions about anything. And this in particular is that there's much misconception out there.
From my conversations with people, I find that one of the challenging things is the ability to really make a distinction between Islam and the Muslims, because regrettably there are Muslims who behave badly.
Of course.
And such bad behavior when it comes out of Muslims definitely reflects negatively on Islam as well as on the community. So for people who make that journey to Islam, it must be tough when you love the deen, or you are impressed by the deen, but you are not so impressed by certain conduct.
There is that. My thinking in and around that, which was part of the consideration, is that there's always a small percentage of people that misbehave in society, regardless of religious background, and so therefore you can't generalise a whole group of people based on a 1%. It makes no sense. It would be the same assumption of making that if 2% of the population are thieves, you wouldn't assume 100% are. It makes no sense. There's no logic behind it. So I think yes, there was certainly consideration and understanding of really trying to understand and help other people understand really what Islam is about, but a very simplistic form that and help them really understand that it's not in and around purely what they read in the newspapers, and I often use the example, which sounds a bit strange, that my background and heritage is Irish, that I would use as an example is that the IRA were a particularly difficult force in the 80s, and did some pretty difficult things in and around here in Northern Ireland, and my family and members of my family in some way, shape or form were affected by that. So, but that wasn't them, and they weren't supportive of it, and so therefore it makes complete sense, and there's some parity between the two examples, I think.
Well, as you rightly said, this happens in every community and in every religion, yet what makes Islam an exception here is that because of the turmoil in much of the Muslim world, the media always focuses on Muslims and Islam, and therefore there is a lot more interest in what the Muslims are doing compared to what other religious communities are doing.
Yes, and I think as you become aware of that, it becomes more apparent. So I mean, one of the decisions both myself and my wife made was we don't watch the news. Well, we do it for a couple of weeks. We feel that there's part of it's a sort of a personal thing, a development thing, that there's very, very little positive stuff that's put out on the news, which isn't necessarily there conducive to giving you positive outlooks on life. So we tend not to listen to it much. I see bits and pieces that pop up, but I don't read newspapers at all, because they're opinions written by other people. They're not factual necessarily, and it's manipulated information in my mind, whatever it might be, if it's about my sector in commercial property or if it's religion. So, and it doesn't take a moment now when you become aware of that when you see a beginning paragraph in and around, a difficulty or an event that's occurred that's involved someone with, marked as an Islamist in some shape or form. It starts off, the paragraph starts off, in that way. But yet, if someone was to, commit a crime down the street, they wouldn't start off, local Christian boy, So there are certainly. The media has a lot to answer for, so I've made an absolute conscious decision to avoid the media, and therefore not because I want to be ignorant of it. I like to know what's going on in the world, but I like to be able to make my own judgment, opposed to being swayed by somebody else's perspective, which is about trying to create some fear and shock. So therefore, you read it and you buy it, but I think it's dangerous stuff that does nothing positive for society. So I avoid it.
Some of the brothers and sisters I've spoken to tell me that at a certain stage after converting to Islam, they felt lonely, either because they had trouble with the family or because the Muslim community wasn't helpful enough.
Yeah,
it doesn't seem to be what happened in your case.
No, I think I'm not sure. I think.
Did you feel that loneliness at any?
I think no, not at all. I think I mentioned brother Farouk, who was incredibly supportive throughout it, and So I think I had a great support network around me, and that's just continued on. So when I got married last year, that just continued. I think again that there's always going to be a degree of skepticism, again, because it's unusual to see someone who's white converted into Islam, but it's got to be my decision for my reasons and not based on my skin tone. So there'll be some people who will probably find it harder than others, and but I think interestingly, I always take a view that when people get to know you, suddenly you're not just a white individual that's converted to Islam. There's more texture to it and more understanding of it, and as a result of that. We have a great number of Islamic friends who visit us and spend time with us, and as I say, we'll go to the mosque, and we meet regularly, and so there's a real sense of community, but more so family, which is really quite refreshing, which is something that I was looking for.
I think that must have helped a lot, because it's not just that you've become a member of the Muslim community. Mm-hmm. Socially also you've because of the marriage,
yes,
that helps a lot.
Yes.
Maybe in your case you didn't feel the need necessarily to look for other converts to see them or to link up with them. I found this in some of the cases I've spoken to, that it helped them to find other converts and link up with them. Mm-hmm. Simply because they did not find that inroad into the Muslim community, right, in their neighborhoods.
Yes, I think probably in part that my wife has this home opposite a mosque. It makes it a little bit more accessible, perhaps. And
yeah, the mosque is just next.
Absolutely, the mosque is the in-laws are across the road as well. They're about just opposite the mosque as well. So everyone's very good. And the sisters, my wife's sisters, are all within for 10, 15 minutes of here as well. And there's 7 of those, and there's kids, and there's so yeah. There's no lack of contact within the community. But equally, there were people, when I went through the conversion, who have been incredibly supportive and invited us around for food, and so there's been there's been no end of support and someone there, and if there was ever a question, I could lift the phone and ask the question. So if anything came up, and I in no way profess to understand anything at any length at this point, but but certainly if there's anything that's ever come up as a question, there's always someone I can ask the question, and that's quite refreshing.
Now, you must have had friends before you converted to Islam.
Absolutely, yeah.
Are they still your friends?
Absolutely, yeah. My friends are. I'm very selective with my friends, and they're in no way judgmental, and they were supportive of me converting, and they were absolutely supportive of my marriage. So I've not had it. I have a very small, tight group of friends, so I don't have lots of friends, but I probably maybe 4 or 5 people I would call friends, and those have been incredibly supportive of it. So there's been no questioning. I think people who know me well enough will know that I'll make a decision based on what I believe to be right, but I'll do it because I feel it's right for me, and I tend not necessarily to ask them permission for that. And equally, I would, in the same way, I would respect their views in life. They thankfully respect mine. So I've had absolutely no issues in and around my friends. They've asked questions about what it involves, which I've done my best with the support of my wife and family to explain that. But beyond that, no, it's not changed anything. No.
Now, it hasn't been long since you made that journey to Islam.
Mm-hmm.
About what, a year and a half?
A year and a half, yeah.
And a half. And how are you coping with learning how to pray, to fast, the surahs or the verses you need to recite in prayers? Is it tough?
It's difficult. Yeah, I must admit, my as you probably can tell, my Arabic isn't fluent. But
well, we haven't tried speaking Arabic.
No. Thankfully, we haven't. It would be a very short conversation. But when I did the conversion, I had to learn the passage of Arabic, and thankfully there are things out there to aid you. So things like YouTube. So there are things out there that can help you get that. Also, when it comes to prayer and indeed fasting, my wife is my guide with that. And her brother and her family have been incredibly supportive. So, myself, my wife will pray together. And I'll on occasion I'll do something wrong, and I'll be corrected, and then I'll do it right. But no, I don't think it's hard. I think if you're dedicated enough to anything, you can get it right. I think it's just a case of practice, and it becomes habit. But no, I tend to lean on my wife a lot about understanding, and I'm always questioning her on various bits and pieces that I'll have read, and I got a great copy of the Quran when I converted, which thankfully is in English in red underneath the Arabic. So I can ask lots of questions in and around that. But no, I think had I not have the support network, I think it would be very, very difficult, incredibly so. But I think there are a lot of resources out there now for you that are digital. That aren't necessary, that aid you, and also lots of information in helping you understand it, but nothing like having family members supporting you through that process.
Now, I suppose this is your second Ramadan?
This is, yes.
So last Ramadan was your first?
Yes, yes, so yeah, tough.
How did you find it?
Yeah.
Especially with the long days?
Yeah, not easy. Not easy, but I suppose, again, I think the difference is if you're alone doing this, I can imagine it being very, very difficult. I think the fact that it becomes interesting. Interestingly, the thing I found around Ramadan is that everyone becomes much closer. We have daughters and son-in-laws, and everyone is going through the same process. So it's not a lonely. It would be unusual to eat outside of fasting. It would seem strange if anything else, and it's a great way to get in shape as well. So it helps. but yeah, it's not hard when the people around you are following that regime. I think it would be harder if you were turning up and everyone was eating various times of the day. But no, it's not difficult. It's a discipline without question.
It is.
And I find keeping busy works. If you're keeping busy and focused on work or throughout that time, it's not too bad. But no, and then just we break fast and we eat well, and then usually go to sleep. But usually tired then.
Well, people are supposed to fast in Ramadan to feel for those who are deprived.
Of course, yeah.
But unfortunately, many Muslims use Ramadan as a season for eating.
Right.
From the time the sun sets
yes.
Until dawn, they spend the night
eating,
filling up which is not a very good a very good thing to do.
No, we don't do that. We'll eat a meal and that'll be it. You know, we're quite, I don't think I could eat that much in one sitting anyway. I don't think I'd eat, but
especially when the night is quite short, as
yes.
it is here.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. But it's a discipline, and it was a shift certainly in the way that you live. But the body is pretty resilient. You know, it's amazing. I think you understand what your body's capable of, and going without food for a few hours here and there actually is probably not a bad thing, particularly in the way in which we eat today. So it's actually probably one of the healthier periods of the year, actually.
Yes, indeed. Now, finally, having made that journey to Islam, do you feel obliged to talk to colleagues who are not Muslim about it? I mean, do you do that, or you prefer not to?
Not openly. I mean, I have colleagues that are Muslim. You know, in my office in London. In fact, one of my colleagues there is Muslim, and she, you know, we often talk about particularly around Ramadan. You know, she'll tell me she's feeling a bit peckish and hungry and things. So there's someone there, but I don't necessarily talk to lots of people about it. I feel if people want to know, I'm happy to discuss it with them. But no, I tend to just you know, I guess focus on what it is it's doing for me and for the people around me and my family. But if anyone asks me, as per your question earlier, if I'm challenged on it, or if the religion is challenged through misconception, I feel duty bound to answer that question, or just to articulate the truth and try and pick it apart a bit and get a degree of sense with it. But no, there are people around me that are fasting at the same time. We'll discuss that. But and work colleagues, we have a real mix of work colleagues, you know, from every nation, every age group. And
well, that's the beauty of London, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's very diverse, very diverse. And also there's and it's great in eating in London. It's very simple and easy. We have a halal Turkish around the corner, so it's. So I don't think it's. I think it's become much more, particularly in London. I think it's particularly. I don't think there's any shock or it's maybe less misconception, because there is a broader mix of Muslim within London than there is. I think maybe when you come up to the outskirts, where I used to live in Surrey, there's much less. So there's probably more misunderstanding there. But as I say, the people and friends that I have close to me have not caused or not thrown up any questions that have been concerning them, let's say.
Well, Brother Paul, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
And to you. Thank you very much.